All right, everybody. Can you all hear me out there? All right. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Uh, we have a very wonderful talk um, for you all today with Denise Mins Harris. Uh, Denise is the daughter of Al Mins, who's a very influential and important Lindy Hopper and jazz dancer. We have a bunch of things to show you all today. We have some photos, we have some videos, and maybe at the end after we finish, I also have a 16 millimeter film of Al dancing on a TV show. So maybe we'll be able to get to all of that. We'll see how it goes. Denise, thank you so much for coming to ILHC. You can use the microphone there too. Oh, right, cool. Thank you so much for coming to ILHC. So maybe we can start out by growing up, being Alman's daughter. To us, he is a hero. He is an originator. But to you, he was dad. So can you just share what it was like growing up with him, and maybe the influence of his work on your life?
So my dad was, I've concluded, a Renaissance guy who never paid attention to the status quo. So naturally, we all kind of got infected with that attitude. And, you know, when he married my mother, a Jewish woman, whose family was rebuilding itself after the Holocaust, it was illegal in most states in this country. She was also someone who rejected the status quo. You know, he came from a family of wash your feet Baptists, hardcore Christian, and yet he wanted to be a dancer. And so with my grandmother, Mama Reeby's support, that's what they did. When he was born in Newport News, Virginia, January 1st, 1920, so he would have been 100 years old on January 1st. And they came to New York, and he began street dancing to help support my grandmother, who did house cleaning and prostitutes hair for 25 cents each in her kitchen. He loved dance, and he passed that on. One of the things he always said to me and my brothers and sisters, there are 5 of us, he said, whatever you do, don't be common. Please strive to be extraordinary. And even though I myself danced, he didn't want me to be a dancer. He was like, I really need you, Denise, to make a bigger mark. He wanted me to do something else. And as we get to the end of this, I'll tell you what I do. But, you know, if you're a child of a dancer, from the time you can walk, they're putting your feet on their feet and you're dancing. So I've always been around dance. I did dance. That's how I paid my way through college. And yeah, it was really interesting. He was a funny guy. I remember he was on the road on tour, and he came back home, and we were so happy to see him, and he said, oh, I'm not your father, I'm his twin Tommy. And my mother went along with this. No, Tim. My name is Tim. So we spent the whole day getting to know Uncle Tim, which we thought was very cool. Oh, and, you know, and my mother's playing along. She said, oh, I'm sure your dad will be here any minute. And Tim says, you know, I've run out of time. I got to go. This is hours later, after dinner. Then he walks out the house, comes back in. Now I realize he's had the same clothes on, the same coat. And he walks in, he's like, is Tim here? So my father was a lot of fun. And in other ways, he was very strict. And in other ways, he was just as Renaissance guy. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. Yeah. Can we talk about, so just to give you guys a little perspective, Al started out at the Savoy Ballroom. He was a Lindy Hopper, but also he considered himself first a jazz dancer, right?
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So he never referred to himself as a Lindy Hop dancer. He referred to himself as a jazz dancer. And Lindy Hop was one of the many things he did at home. I didn't bring it. I don't know who gave it to me. But I had this list of all the dance numbers he did in a show. And it was multiple dance genres. So he never, and quite frankly, I believe he considered Lindy Hop part of the jazz school of dance. But it was one of them. It wasn't the only one. As a matter of fact, he started out dancing on street corners, you know, with a hat to raise money, to make money. And he started out doing the Charleston because he wasn't in the clubs yet, so he didn't know anything about Lindy Hop yet. And they would work one corner after another. I don't believe his education went beyond 7th grade. But what was so fascinating is that he was self-taught. A lot of the books, particularly if they were like sociology books or classics like Shakespeare, things like that, when I went to college, he already had them in his library. I didn't have to buy them because he was self-taught. And he had other idiosyncrasies, like it was really important to him that I knew how to sit at a table and know forks, like which fork and what spoon and what's a water glass and what's a wine glass, and hold it from the stem and not the cup, you'll heat it up, because of what his vision was for where we would end up. He pushed hard against racism. We don't talk a lot about the effect of racism and Lindy, but I feel compelled to share a Norma story. So I was with Norma on her birthday at Debbie Allen's house. I worked with Debbie Allen for 15 years as director of her dance academy. And I mentioned to Norma that sometimes I sense tension in the black Lindy community about the white Lindy community. And I asked her what was her feeling about that. And Norma looked at me and she said, well, you know, racism created the Lindy Hop. And and I said, really? And I was getting ready to pursue that with her, like, what do you mean? And Mauricio, the band leader of the Italian band she brought with her, he runs over, he says, are you Alman's daughter? And I'm like, yeah. So the next 45 minutes, I'm taking pictures with everybody, and I'm saying, well, I'll find out from Norma when I see her in November what she meant by that. And, you know, as you know, she passed. So then I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, what is she talking about? What did that mean? And this is not from Norma, this is my opinion. But my opinion is the devastation of validated overt racism was so powerful and vivid when my dad was growing up that you have this community of black dancers who would take that, if you're a female, take that one or two pretty blouse that you saved to go to the Savoy, and that one of two pretty skirts that you saved to go to the Savoy, and that one pair of shoes that you're holding on to with cardboard in the bottom because there's a hole in them. These are stories my dad told me. And then all day you've dealt with being treated like less than and in fear of losing whatever you have because somebody got mad or took offense at something. And then you go to the Savoy. And that was a place where you could be free, where you could do you and be you. And that's why they went every day, because that was a safe space where they could reinforce so that when they're out there every day dealing with that, in the back of their heads they could say, you don't even know who I am. I believe that's what Norma meant. And if it's not what she meant, it's what I figured out.
Thank you for that. I think at the Savoy, Frank used to say that movie stars would walk in the door, and it was no big deal to anybody because everyone was on the same playing field there. Doesn't matter if they're famous, but can they dance, right?
Right.
So at the Savoy, your dad early on met someone who would eventually become his partner, Leon James.
Uncle Leon. Uncle Leon.
To you, yeah. So as I understand it from interviews with Al, they were rivals at first, and then eventually befriended each other and became partners. And after the swing era, they had a whole career together, traveling, educating people on all the history of all the dances that you talked about, the jazz dances. Many of them with Marshall Stearns,
Right.
who wrote the book Jazz Dance.
Right.
So maybe can you tell us a little bit about Uncle Leon?
What a sweet guy, huh? He was just sweet, really sweet. He's also crazy and married a white woman when it was illegal in most states of the country. And so our two families, Leon had two daughters as well, our two families would get together occasionally, socially. But I just remember him as a real sweet guy. We didn't do a lot of direct interacting, like he's saying, come here, Denise, or us having any experiences together, but they weren't so much rivals as my father, Sugar, check me if I'm wrong, but there was this circle at the Savoy that unless you were amazing and validated by the other dancers as being amazing, you're not supposed to dance in that. And Leon was the king.
Yeah.
Nobody's supposed to go in that circle. That's Leon's circle. And my father knew that, and he went in the circle anyway. And they were going to throw him out. But Leon kind of saw something in him and said, let the kid stay. So it wasn't a hostile, it was like, as a dancer myself, when someone has it and they just need that polish, that push, that reinforcement, and they're a little arrogant, you kind of let them hang around and watch. So he watched them. And they eventually came together and developed a great creative partnership.
Yeah.
And Papo had to deal with, his mother dying, Leon dying. I mean, he went through this period of loss, just losing significant people in his life, and he kind of withdrew. And then I was his only dance partner. He would dance with me. Although I did perform with him professionally, but that when he needed to dance, he'd be like, come on, Denise, let's dance. Okay, fine.
All right. I would love to show a clip of Al and Leon dancing together. Okay. We'll play this here. Oop, I'm sorry, technical difficulties.
The black bottom, the snakeets, and the Lindy Hop.
So I do want to call back to what you mentioned before, that Al, being a jazz dancer, he was interested in all forms of jazz dance, and he was a student of these dances, but became an educator. You could see all the different dances that they were demonstrating in this clip. In all of their presentations with Marshall Stearns and by themselves, they would go through as an educational experience for audiences and go through all of these dances. They wanted the world to know the rich history of all these dances together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I did the show with him at Town Hall, it was the first time I saw him do that whole, and he would start with the cakewalk, which had its roots in slavery. And that's when the slaves would carry the cake and walk in ways that mocked the slave owners. And he would do this whole historical presentation from the cakewalk to the twist. And he was very, very committed to people understanding the historical evolution of black dance in America. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some photos. They were featured on many television shows. They were featured in films, and they had their historical presentations that they traveled around for. So I don't know if you've seen these photos, but oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that. We have some further technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. But maybe I can just show you a little bit of, yeah.
Look how he's looking at Leon.
Yeah.
That was their relationship. Mm-hmm. That was totally their relationship.
So they would talk about the dances themselves. They would demonstrate them. Yeah. And I think that's, to me, their partnership. They both cared so much about all of these dances and wanted to share that with the world.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I remember when he called me because he'd been asked to come teach. And he was incredulous. He's like, I don't teach dance. And I said, well, Papa, you need the money. Go to work and teach. Figure it out. Uh-huh. And he called me up, and he was laughing because he didn't know how to count dance. That's not how he danced. It wasn't about counting. Mm-hmm. And where he went, they were like, you have to count this out for the students. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. And so he conceded it for a short time. He tried counting, but that's just not, because if you're counting, you're not dancing in between the rhythms. And he didn't just dance on, he danced through.
Yeah.
And if he wanted to teach something, I believe what he was interested in teaching was finding your own voice in the dance. And when my own digression is, I feel like as an art, it's become very codified, and it's choking off to some degree the creativity.
Yeah, and I think that was a challenge for other Savoy dancers who were contacted in the early 80s. Their tradition was, it was a very organic thing originally.
It was fluid.
Right, and coming into a world where other people who had just started dancing were used to learning in a ballroom studio where there are counts and there's a curriculum, that sort of thing. So trying to teach to people that were already used to that, I think was a challenge both for the teacher and for the students.
Yeah, but his decision was, this is how I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. You can come and get it, or you can go somewhere else. Uh-huh. He wasn't going, like I said, he didn't care about that stuff. Yeah. You know, he was glad to pass it on. Mm-hmm. He was also deeply disturbed that young black dancers weren't coming to. He was even kind of mad at me because at that point I had segued over to studying Dunham and modern and African and ballet. And he was like, oh, really? Okay. You're going to do that. All right, fine.
So this is a photo of him teaching class at the Sandra Cameron Dance Center. This is probably the very early 1980s. And I do love the expression on his face. This is, to me, this is an expression of pride at...
They got it.
Yeah, yeah. So there are many photos. This is one of his classes. And demonstrating.
I remember that shirt.
Yeah?
I thought it was ugly then. I think it's ugly now.
Can you talk about what it meant to him maybe after Leon died? I understand that you said that you were his only dance partner in those years.
At home.
At home.
Yeah.
Coming back out of retirement, so to speak, in the early 1980s, how did that affect him? How did that change his perspective?
So my dad had lived a life of, always something new, somewhere new, someone new. Just, he was a dancer. And all of a sudden it stopped. And he's home. And he's legally blind. And he was bored. He was just bored. And sometimes it would make him mean and cranky, like bored old men get. So this revitalized him, It's not like the Lindy Hop stopped as a dance form in our community, but there were no more Savoys. There was no place to go where, as Norma heard the music coming out, she went in and learned and became, and Sugar learned and became, because there was access. There was no place like that anymore. So it revitalized him. When he called me up and he's like, Denise, there are these guys here from Sweden, and they want me to go with them, and they're talking about a month. So I'm going to tell you where I'm going. If I'm not home in a month, come find me. So he went to Sweden. He came home. He called me. He was so full of joy.
Yeah.
Because he saw this dance form that he gave his life to. He found other people who loved it as much as he did and wanted to get it and get it right. Because when he got there, he said, honey, they didn't know what they were doing. It wasn't what we do, which is fine. Because then he took it on. And he said, he said, but my throat hurts. And my dad was a bit of an alley cat, a little wild when it came to hanging out. And so I said, well, Dad, I don't know what you picked up in Sweden, but you better go to the hospital and find out why your throat hurts. And then they found out he had esophageal cancer. And a few short months later, he died. But I feel like his life had completion.
Yeah.
And victory. And since it's going to happen to us all eventually, how wonderful for him. And that got all of us through it, that, he ended on a victorious note, because someone asked me, I think Leonard asked me in a regular time, well, did your father ever have a regular job? And no. So if that meant some months he gave blood to the Red Cross to pay the rent, that's what he did. I mean, we lived that way. But we were all happy because everybody was broke where we were. So it was okay. I mean, we had a moment of living upper middle class, but not long, as things began to fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he died victorious, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah. I'm so happy that he saw that people cared about what he did.
Yeah.
And what everyone's contributions were back then. It started to come back. I do have a clip that I would love to show, actually two. One is very short, and they're both from the early 1980s, after he had begun this little revival of his own work. So the first one is from a program called Eye on Dance, and it features both him and Sugar Sullivan, who is with us here today. So let's see if I can find my... There we go.
What's the difference between the Lindy and the jukebox?
Well, like Sugar doesn't agree with me. I say that the Lindy, the difference is that people did Lindy Hop knew what they were doing, and jitterbugs were just out there jumping up and down like they didn't have any sense.
This is known as the Savoy twist.
Let's hear for Sugar, everybody. I apologize that this is just a small clip. There is a full program, which I have not seen yet. Hopefully we'll be able to see it soon. But it's wonderful hearing from him speak about dance. There's another one, which is a clip produced by Larry Schultz, who was responsible for organizing some of the events, yeah. And let's watch this one. Here we go.
Al Mills, at age 61, is dancing again. Dancing the Big Apple, the Lindy, the Charleston, and the Skim Jam. Mills knows all the jazz dancers, from the cakewalk to the twist. His appearance this weekend with a new company, Dance in New York, at the Theater of the Riverside Church, marks his first stage appearance in 7 years. Al Mills grew up in Harlem, dancing at the Savoy Ballroom. In 1938, he met Leon James, another great Savoy dancer, and the two traveled throughout the world, appearing in nightclubs, theaters, Hollywood films, jazz festivals, and on television. In the 1960s, declining interest in the Lindy and other jazz dancers idled the team. Al Mills left dancing in 1974 when his partner died. He held several jobs and lived in several different places before retiring completely and moving to this house here in Jamaica, Queens. Mills lived quietly in a small apartment with his dog, Snoopy. Why are you coming out of retirement now?
Number one is bored. Retirement, I think the worst thing that can happen to a person when they retire is they become bored and miserable and angry too. Because all your friends, they're busy doing something. And if they're not busy, you sit on and look at each other, you've got nothing to talk about. And when you see something like this, I mean, when you're busy, if you're just thinking, this one, you know? This way gives you something to think about.
Al Mills' new partner, Sugar Sullivan, is a great Savoy dancer in her own right, a 1956 Harvard Green Gold Jitterbug champion. She remembers as a teenager watching him at the Savoy. The young members of the Dance in New York company have never seen the Lindy or even heard of the Savoy. Working with him has been an inspiration.
I think one of the most special things about Alan is that he has a story of art that comes out that has got me to stick to what he's doing, and it shows in his face, and it shows in his body, and I think it's particularly true among older generations who have the kind of background, the kind of experiences and learning.
Alan looks forward to teaching in his new career, passing on the Lindy and other jazz dancers to future generations. Here is some 3-4 New Zealand.
Now, I say that's coming out of retirement. Al Sugar Sullivan and the Dancing New York Company perform Saturday and Sunday night at the Theater of the Riverside Church in Manhattan.
So I just want to add this. She said he worked several jobs and lived. I could always tell when my father didn't like somebody who was interviewing him because he would lie. He didn't work several jobs. He was a dancer. And that was his cash flow, and that's what he did. But if he thought that you might have a judgment about him, he'd tell you, oh yeah, I've had lots of jobs. No, he didn't ever work a regular punch. Well, he did once, and that didn't last. But in fairness, he was a tool and die maker at a machine shop of some kind. And once he got replaced by a computer, I remember coming home and telling my mom, see, I told you I was just supposed to dance. And she's like, okay. And she was fine with it. But he didn't work several jobs. No. What does that mean?
So I would like to talk to you about this magazine. This is Ballroom Dance Magazine from February 1962. And can you tell me who this is on the right here?
So that's me. And in the middle is Nina, that's Leon's daughter. And at the bottom, that's my younger brother, Kevin. We did a photo shoot.
So there's a whole photo shoot in this magazine of Al and Leon, and Al's children and Leon's children.
Dancing.
Do you remember this photo shoot?
Yeah, the main reason why I remember it is because my mom bought me these really amazing black patent leather shoes, and my sister, and so we go there with our fancy black patent leather shoes, and they say that the shoes were reflecting the light, and we had to take our shoes off and dance in our tights, and that annoyed me. But my father told me just go along with it because I started arguing.
You can see that in these photos. There are no shoes on.
Right
here.
Just
You can
tights.
see right here.
How weird is that? But okay, whatever.
It's amazing that they wanted to share not only the dance, but that they were passing on these dances to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I talk to people in the community and I ask them, well, how did you find Lindy Hop? How did you discover Lindy Hop? And it's interesting because it seems like almost to the person, the entree was through the music. And then it became, oh, there's dancing that goes with this as they pursue the music. So now when I have family events and the younger generations are there, I make sure Count Basie's on so that they hear the music.
Yeah.
And develop, because rap music, it's so simplistic that you don't hear music. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they need a wider exposure to their music.
Yeah.
So I've taken that on as my personal little mission.
All right. That sounds great. If anyone would like to see this, it will be at the Swing Dance Museum. Little plug, stop by. There's lots of wonderful stuff there, including a lot of stuff featuring Al Minns. So I want to ask you, Denise, how did you get connected with our whole world of Lindy Hop today?
Yeah, because I didn't know any of this was going on until 2 years ago. And my son, Kevin, who's a dancer, and my son, Kevin, contacted me, and he's like, Mom, want to go to Sweden? All expenses paid? I said, why would I go there? And he said, well, because he posts a lot of stuff about my dad on social media, and someone contacted him and asked him, are you related? And he's like, I'm his grandson. And they're like, well, you want to come talk about him? And he's like, I was an infant when my grandfather died. You want to talk to my mom because she's also a dancer. And so that's how I mean, anyone who saw me the first time in harangue, the girls know I was sobbing and drinking. Like, oh, my dad, look at this. Look, when I look out, I'm so moved that you guys give a damn. I never expect more than 2 or 3 people, the ones I say, you coming, right? So when I see this, it's like, you know, it's an homage to him. And I'm so touched. I so appreciate each of you coming to hear about him. Thank you.
So I understand that your sons are also carrying on the tradition of their grandfather. You want to talk about the...
Okay, so I have 3 sons. The oldest is... So everybody danced, but the oldest decided to go into the medical field. So he got his BA, he got his master's, he did 3 years of med school, and then he decided to create this business. It's very lucrative. It's in the health services. Great. Then there's Kevin. Kevin's been dancing since he's, well, like I said, the minute you can walk, your parents put you, but training since he's 7 years old. I have Kevin and Wayne. Those 2, I made sure, had master training in ballet, jazz, tap, hip hop, African, flamenco, voice, and acting, because if you're going to do this, don't be broke. So Kevin today lives in Dallas. He choreographs for 6 different performing groups, and he teaches 18 classes a week, and he's a hip hop master. Now, what's so fascinating to me, because when I sent him to study at Lines Ballet in San Francisco under Alonzo King, they begged me and my husband to convince him to go into their company, because he's exquisite as a ballet dancer, but hip hop is his passion, which kind of like hip hop today is the Lindy Hop of my father's era. So the line connects so beautifully, right? So that's Kevin. He's in Texas. He's doing well. And then my baby, Wayne, Wayne is at Fordham University in New York, and he just completed his first Broadway show. He danced in a show on Broadway called The Prom. It had 7 Tony nominations. And then, I mean, like, Joshua! And then I've been looking for y'all. I'm so good, because I was like, and so Tony, and then he comes home because it really wore his body out. If you saw The Prom, the dancer was full out all the time. And then when he became Tony nominated, he had to do all these extra performances. So he came home, but he went to take a dance class to just keep his chops up, and the choreographer comes to him and says, listen, I need you to audition for this Disney show I'm doing, because I can't find anybody who can act and dance like you. And so while he's home on break, he's co-starring in this Disney show called Shook, where he dances his little butt off. You can see him on, it's Disney YouTube channel, and it's called Shook, S-H-O-O-K. So the legacy continues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, they've also come to Lindy Hop events themselves.
Yes.
What do they think of all of this?
They're kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like Kevin says, Mom, they treat me like I'm royalty. I don't even know how to wrap my brain around it. I said, just be humble, stay humble. And Wayne was trying to get down here to be here today. He's in New York. And I told him, look, you hear me talk all the time. Just keep your money in your pocket, because I don't want you calling me for none. Keep your money. I'll see you later. So, yeah, and he was calling me today, blowing up my phone. What time? I'm like, stay in New York. I'll see you later. Yeah. So yeah, and then I danced, and that's how I paid my way through college. But my father didn't. I was good. I was good enough to teach at the State University for 4 years. So I was good as a jazz dancer, good enough. I might even say excellent, but but my father really wanted me to do more. So today, I'm a professional fundraiser. Some of my clients are the Democratic National Committee, Greenpeace, Planned Parenthood, American Civil Liberties Union. So, because, I was a Black Panther, I was crazy, I was just like him, rejecting the status quo. And so it's been a natural evolution of being a revolutionary, but that gene comes from my mom and my dad. When I was with the Panthers as a young teenager, and we were getting ready to do this action because Columbia University at the time owned a lot of slum buildings in Harlem, and some kid fell down an elevator shaft and died because they wouldn't repair the damn shaft. So we were getting ready to do an action, and my dad, who was strict about education, my dad thought I was going to school every day, and I wasn't. I was at the headquarters planning this thing that I was pretty sure I was going to get arrested because I was the youth spokesperson, and they picked me because I was so tiny. They were pretty sure the cops wouldn't hit me. Now they might, but not then. And so it was time to tell him, like, I may be arrested. I didn't know what he was going to do, how he was going to react, because I didn't know. I knew he was about to find out that I'd been lying to him for about the past month, that I had not been in school. So I had been cutting out the clippings of all my newspaper articles when they said a spokesman said, and I showed it to him, and he took his time and he read through it, and he's like, so what is this all about? And I said, well, Dad, I'm the spokesperson, and I'm going to be there tomorrow, and I'm probably going to get arrested. And then I squeezed my eyes, and he said to me that he was so proud of me, that he wished it could have happened when he was my age, and that if he had to put the house up, I won't stay in jail any longer than it takes for him to get me out. Wow. So he had my back. He was a badass,
wow.
you know.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. We're running a little short on time, and I want to tell everybody that Denise asked to make sure to leave some time at the end of the presentation for questions. So I'd love to open it up for any questions that you might have for Denise. Anybody out there have a question? We do have a film, which we can show, but I do want yeah.
You're saying, did my mom embrace the dance part of my life? Well, my dad met my mom because she went and took a dance class with him. So she was fine with it. She knew what she was buying when she took him off the shelf. Yes. So no surprises there. Unfortunately, my mother was also schizophrenic. So when I was 8 years old, she disappeared. And we didn't find her for 10 years. I found her when I was 18. And it's very interesting because I called Papa and I said, I found Mom. And he said to me, I'll call you back, of course. And then the next day he called me back and he's like, I can't manage this right now. He said, but anything you need me to sign, anyway she needs my support, let me know and I'll come through for her. So, he dealt with a lot of loss. A lot of loss, but so dance was his anchor to sanity. Dance is what helped him get through all the grieving, even if it meant he had to do it with me. But I loved it because my feet never stayed on the ground. He'd fly me all over. It was the best. I loved it. Then to find out from Sugar, he was one of the best partners. I knew that, but to hear someone else say it was great.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Did any of your siblings dance as well?
Not with the same passion as me. My sister took my dance class. My older sister took my dance class. I was extra strict with her, but it wasn't something she pursued, nor did my brothers. It was me.
Yep.
With great difficulty. You know, it was a time of, okay, the other part I didn't tell you was that when I turned 16, I became, I mean, I had machine guns under my mattress. You know what I mean? I was hiding guns. But it dawned on me that if I don't get out of New York, I'm going to get killed because I can't be quiet about anything. So I talked my way into college at 16 with no high school diploma. And they didn't have GEDs in those days. I just went to the State University of New York at Old Westbury, and I talked my way into this experimental college. They only admitted 20 students a year, and I got lucky.
Wow.
You know, and it polished my life. And I was the first one in my family to graduate from college since they pulled us over here on the boat. You know, so it was a radical change. And then in college, of course, what did I do? I shut it down in the student movement. But when you have a sense of purpose, the balance presents itself. Well, the truth is you don't look for a balance. You just do. And if that meant there was a day that you didn't sleep, that's okay, because you're doing your own purpose, and it didn't matter. And that was the energy of this country at that time. The young people were pushing and wanted to change the world overnight and believed we could. And I wouldn't trade those experiences for all the tea in China. And my dad was proud of me.
Nice. Anyone else with questions? Okay.
From the internet. Do you know what your father's favorite songs were? Anything stand out from the swing era or later?
Anything with Count Basie. Loved Frank Sinatra, Johnny Mathis, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan. Those are the ones I remember him playing the most. Might be others, not that I can think of, because they became my favorites. They got me. Billie Holiday got me through college. Yeah. Well, you know, he had visions of maybe one day becoming a singer himself. He could sing, but it wasn't the right time. You know.
Did he ever sing to you?
All the time.
Yeah.
There was one song, I don't even know where it came from, but there was a song he sang to me called, well, the verse was, look ahead, don't look back, because the ground you cover, you can't backtrack. And I've typed that online to try to find that song, and I can't find it. I would love to, you now have a mission.
All right. Everybody also
it's
has
a great
that mission,
song.
okay?
It's a great song, and he'd be, Sunday morning was my time with Papa, because he's being mother, father, and touring. But he also was a great cook. So I would get up on Sunday mornings and go in the kitchen while he cooked. And then I could ask him anything. I mean, one time we had a conversation when he said to me, Denise, and that's when he would be singing. And he once said to me, Denise, I wish I could believe you'll be a virgin when you get married, but you're too much like me, you're too much like your mother, and don't let her lie to you. He said, so I want to talk to you about that when you're ready. I said, deal. And I did.
Maybe it had been a song that he was writing or had in his head to write. Could have been lyrics that he wanted to
I've always wondered, was it maybe from the Hot Mikado, which was a show he did on Broadway? I don't know, but it could be. It could be. You don't remember those lyrics? It was a great song. It had all kinds of, damn, look ahead, don't look back. Yeah, and he would grunt the percussion. See, that's what he didn't count. He grunted. If you noticed on that video,
Right.
he was like, yeah, but he
Yeah.
didn't count. He did that stuff. He was a funny guy.
Yeah.
For example, what? Yeah, I'm the same way. No, I mean, honestly, because it means it means you live honestly. You're like, people worry about how other people are going to react to what you say or do. You know, but if you're being authentically honest about who you are, they can either handle it or not handle it. That's their call. And that's how he lived his life. And I think because my grandmother was so supportive, it gave him the room to do that. Because see, what's interesting is, and I only realized this in reflection because I was living my life, not analyzing it, you know what I'm saying? But, so here you got my mom. Her Jewish family rejected us because I'm not even mad at them anymore. They were trying to rebuild, and she goes and finds the blackest man in Harlem. Come on now. So they kind of go away. And then my dad, who they wanted him to be a minister, you know, is dancing on corn. So they didn't have no use for him either. So you almost get this, this mentality of us against the world. Because it was us against the world. Because there was no, like people have family, right? That if something goes wrong, they got somewhere, there was no fallback. So either Papa made it work for us, or we were gonna go down the drain. And he made it work, whatever it took.
Back there, yeah.
I would like to see this art evolve, not devolve. I would like to see more risk-taking. I believe my dad would be very flattered at how much his technique has been studied, but he would say, okay, now what? What are you doing? Okay, you got that, now what's yours? What are you creating? One of the things he talked about was most of the aerials that were created came out of mistakes. They didn't mean for it to be an aerial, it was a mistake. And they were like, wait, let's work with this. Maybe we can make something happen. That's the way his mind worked. So I think if I were to say what my father's and my desire is, it is to keep creating and don't devolve into simplistic because it's easier. When I went to Harangue the first time, all the different dance studios are named after, you know, the Savoy, the Alhambra, and so on. And I said, you guys need to have a room called Balls, B-A-L-L-S, the Ball Studio. And that's where people go who got some balls to try to create something new. So I want to see it evolve. If it doesn't evolve, it'll stay small. If it doesn't elevate, not devolve, not make it simpler, and all this codifying, I can't stand it. My dad would freak out. It's getting too much, this is the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just not. And I know teachers have to say that because you're a teacher. And 99% of teaching dance is saying, no, 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 not like that, not like that, no. Where did you see that? That's not what I did. I understand that. But not to the point that you get brain lock and it's become regimented, because I'll say it, Lindy Hop is not ballroom dancing. Stop treating it like that. Am I right, Sugar? Stop making it ballroom. Come on. That's not what it is. That's where it ended up, but that's not what it is. It is self-expression. And you should express yourself through your art and not worry. Because if you're the one doing it as you perceive it, the first ones who were saying, what's she doing? They'll be the ones asking you later on, show me that. Because it's different, it's unique, it's powerful. That's my answer.
All right. I think that's a wonderful thought to leave on. We are out of time, but I just want to thank so much Denise Mins-Harris for being here with us this weekend. Thank you for all your words and sharing all the stories with us. Thanks so much, Denise. All right. We're going to wrap up here. If anyone would like to stick around, in a few minutes, I will play a film of a TV show featuring Al dancing and some other stuff in it as well. If you want to stick around, we'll start that in a few minutes. Thanks so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Loved it.